Alright, so it's kind of, this is like part of the 30-day scripting challenge, but it's not a topic that I want to cover directly with the 30-day scripting challenge. It's something I'm going to talk about on the outside. So this could be considered day 10.5 or whatever, because I'm going to talk about something that's going to be a part of the rest of the 30-day scripting challenge. And it's going to be framework, script architecture, which is really important when you're programming games. And when I made the A9, which was the timer service thing, I put it in a module script and I called it timer service, which was wrong. It's not a service, it's a utility. And if that doesn't make sense, I'll explain it now. So with script architecture, the way that I'm going to be doing it for the rest of the 30-day scripting challenge is I have a folder inside replicated storage called shared, and inside of it, it has two folders. One of them is called services, and the other one's called modules. In the modules folder is where our utilities go, like the timer module, which was a utility. The scripts would use it to create a timer. And then in the services section is going to be where all of our game stuff will run, games services. Not services like run service, but our own game services, like what we're making, like zombie servers or NPC servers. And then all of these would be module scripts that we would run manually with something called a module loader. This architecture is called the server-based architecture, or single script architecture, because one module is on it. Because one script is loading all of the services and modules. So I'm going to talk about how the architecture works in this video, and it's not going to be an advanced one, it's going to be a simple one that won't really be too complicated. So the way that it works is all the services will go into here, and then our loaders, in this case for the client and the server, would go in server script service and server scripts. So to do that, we're also gonna make the scripts themselves. So I'll make an example service here inside of the services folder, and I'll delete this later, but this is just so it'll be visualized. This will be called the example service, and inside of the example service, we usually have two functions. It'll be initialize and start. So function example service for initialize, and then a function example service for start. The difference between these two is that initialize sets up the module and start actually begins the module. The important thing is if we don't run initialize and other modules use this module, when the module has not been set up yet, it's not going to work. Which is why all the modules will run this init function first, and then they'll run the start function right after that. So to start the loading process here, we would create a loader script inside a server script service for the server, and then the starter player scripts for the client. So this would be called server loader, and then I pop this over and put up the starter player scripts later, because they're both the same. So the way this is going to work is we're going to get all the services that we're going to use. So we're going to say local services. It's just going to equal this table here. These will be all the things that we're going to use. And then the folder where all of our services will be. So it'll be in replicated storage. So local service folder is going to be equal to game.replicated storage shared services. Now usually there would be different types of locations for your services. Like some services that only the server access would just be on the server. All of the client ones would only be on the client, which would hardly ever happen. But you'd usually have separate locations for the services, but all of them are going to be shared. It's pretty standard for that. And then from here we start to require all of them. So we'll just loop through it. So underscore module in service folder, colon get children, and check if module, colon is a module script. Then we're simply just going to say local service is going to be equal to require module, and then we're going to add in our services. Module.name is going to be equal to the service here, and that will populate the service table of all of our game's custom services. And then we're going to move down. This is going to be this is the requiring phase, right? This is where we require all the module scripts to activate. The initialize phase is where we're going to set them all up. So it would be for underscore service in the services table. We're gonna check if that service itself has the init function here. So yeah, we're just gonna check if service dot init, then we're just going to say service colon init, and then depending on how you would run your initializing setup, you could pass in all the current services based on what, like, if they need like services to set up, but in this case they don't, so I'm not going to, but they can be passed just in case like they need them, and we just pass it in the table so it can access what services they need to home. But it doesn't need to be passed, so this can be left blank. And then that's the initializing part. Now we're going to the start thing. Well, this is where the code will actually like begin and how things will set up. So it will be for underscore service in services. If we just run it twice, we just say if service start, then you would do pass.spawn and then the service start. So what pass.spawn does is I've said this so many times now, is it runs the code in the background on the side, so that way it doesn't yield the code until the service start is completed, and it'll keep starting all the services up without waiting for one to start before starting the other. And that's pretty much all we need for the like module loading part, and then you can add different preferences inside of this module loader, like waiting for modules and stuff like that, and if you want the client to run after the server has been loading. Now we're just going to copy all this, I'm going to put it inside the local script, and start a player scripts, or whatever, and this will be called the client folder, and we put this exact same code in, so it will run for the client. And that's pretty much that. Now, I'll actually talk a little bit about this initialize thing here, where we do pass in the services thing. So let's say we have example service, and example service, we'll just rename this to like a shop or something, right? Market service, right? We would go ahead and copy this here, right? So let's say we have market service. Market service would be what would handle all of the like transactions, like players buying and selling stuff. In market service, we would probably want another service, which would be the like currency, like what is being used to buy and sell stuff on our market. So it would most likely take in another service. In this case, I'll duplicate this and call it like currency or money service, right here, money service. It would need the money service, right? Because the players are buying stuff with money on the market, so it would need the money service. So in here, I will pass in these services already because we want the money service. So then I would say local money service, and then in here we would say money service is going to equal to services dot money service. And that way, when we run the start, and then let's say a market service runs the like an item has been purchased on the market service, we would then call, say, money service, like I don't know, money service dot deduct money from a player, right? That's pretty much all you would need to do for the dependencies, right? So now to add a little bit of visualization here, we're going to have a print statement on both ends for what has been initialized. So in our server here on the require, initialize, and start, we're going to say print, and then the module dot name, and then required, and then I'll copy this over, but then this one will just be, or actually on the second thought, we just like have it be ran inside of the thing here. So for init, we would just print market service initialized, and then we copy it here, but we just place it started, and then over on our money service, we do the same thing. We will just say money service initialized, and then money service started, and that would pretty much be it. So now if I were to pop in the playtest here, if we now look in the Explorer, we would have money service initialized, market service initialized, and then money service started, and then market service started. And then we have an error where money service hasn't been created yet. Oh, and the issue with that, I just didn't pass in the services thing here. Oops. And there we go. So if you look at it on the server, which is the green here, they'll say money server initialized, market service initialized, money server started, and then market server started. And then the blue, which is our client, they'll say money server started, initialized, market server initialized, money server started, and then market server started. So this would be for our architecture, and this is an example of how we would get our like different services across scripts and why it's separated into pull and initialize and pull and start. And then something that a lot of people get tripped up on is why do we need this initialize? The initialize sets up the service so that other scripts, if they need to use it, they can use it instead of it erroring like it showed there, which would happen if I didn't have pull initialized. And then also it lets us like set up the rest of the service. So like if we had a tower service for towers in a tower defense game, which was something I've done in the past before, we would want it to store all of the towers. So if this was like tower service, we would say self, which is just the market service, and then we would say self dot or whatever. Like markets is going to be equal to a table or a function like get market number, or collection service will get tagged or whatever. We would set up like whatever markets are available, and then maybe like self dot sellers is going to equal to this, right? It's gonna enable all of our values in the initialize setup. So instead of it being a table, it will just be game dot collection service get tagged markets, right? Or whatever. That's what the initialize would be for. And that's that. That's all this video was about. It was talking about how this architecture is very helpful. It's called the service-based architecture, and it's really, really nice. And I highly recommend people to use it. And also on these loaders, these are like the building blocks. These are the absolute base, right? You can add way more to this than just the default like loading part, but this is what is going to be used for the rest of the 30-day scripting challenge. And I thought I would put it in a separate video just so people can understand how things are going to move on or moving forward, and that way I won't have to explain all of it in each video. But yeah, these are just examples. I'm gonna delete these, the market and money service. But I'll keep the loaders because they're important. So if you're following along with the 30-day scripting challenge, then definitely be sure to follow through this. But if you're only watching them just to learn how to create something, then don't follow this. Only follow the logic portions of the code where I'm actually getting to it. So for day 11, it's going to be an NPC system for dialogue, and I've already set up a tiny bit of stuff here for when we get into that. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this. I really hope you guys can get into custom frameworks yourselves. They're super nice when you're organizing code and for running game processes really nicely. And hopefully I explained that very well. If I didn't, Google a comment or watch the YouTube video. If I didn't explain that well, I hope like you can find some videos of it, because I seriously love using custom architectures. Alright, yeah, I will see you all on day 11.